Hamilton fires a brutal message at Leclerc after Silverstone. Ferrari left stunned, and Leclerc's reaction is unmissable. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. It wasn't the polished podium ceremony, the anthem echoing through the grandstands, the confetti showers, or the raised trophies that captured the soul of what truly unfolded that afternoon at Silverstone. The heart of the story pulsed far away from the camera flashes and the celebrations. It was buried in the storm, forged in the blur of speed and chaos, and transmitted through fractured radio signals charged with urgency, tension, and raw instinct. What mattered didn't unfold in front of the fans waving flags. It erupted in the hidden war between two drivers dressed in scarlet, pushing identical machines through a tempest that tested far more than skill. They shared the same tools, the same tires, the same engine, the same team. But no amount of technical parity could mask the enormous difference in how they faced the approaching storm. The conditions were cruel. The sky collapsed into sheets of rain. The track went from damp to dangerous in the blink of an eye. Grip dissolved. Visibility evaporated. Control became a luxury. In that sudden descent into chaos, one man hesitated, unsure, looking to others for direction. The other responded instantly, with clarity and steel, like he'd been waiting for the moment everything went off script. Charles Leclerc, undeniably talented and usually sharp when the variables are clear, faltered when they weren't. As the rain intensified and the circuit transformed into a high-speed skating rink, his voice crackled over the radio with a question not of strategy, but of doubt. "What are we doing?" Those 4 words cut deeper than any lap time. They revealed the mental space he was in, searching, hoping, asking. He wasn't acting. He was stalling. Caught between what he felt and what he feared, he delayed the one thing he needed most, a decision. And in racing, hesitation doesn't just cost time, it destroys rhythm, confidence, momentum. It turns potential into paralysis. On the opposite side of the garage, under the same rain, with the same tires slipping and the same risk of aquaplaning looming, Lewis Hamilton didn't wait for someone else to decide. He felt the shift in the car, the loss of grip, the pull of the rear as it danced dangerously on the edge, and he didn't ask. He didn't consult strategy charts or weather predictions. He simply spoke with authority born of thousands of battles. Box for inters. No. One sentence, ice cold, without a shred of hesitation. A decision made not with analysis, but with instinct sharpened over years of racing in impossible conditions. The response from the pit crew was immediate. Not because they were told to believe him, but because they did. There was no back and forth, no analysis paralysis. Just action. Pure, synchronized action. The moment Hamilton entered the lane, everything clicked. The stop was clinical. He exited with new tires and full conviction. While others struggled to find rhythm on the slick surface, he returned to the track not like a man adapting to the rain, but like someone who owned it. Each lap he completed from that point on was a masterclass. He wasn't just driving. He was dissecting the race. Finding grip where others spun. Taking lines no one else dared touch. Braking later, accelerating earlier, managing the risk with surgical control. There was no drama. No mistakes. Just ruthless efficiency. He sliced through the field, overtaking with surgical precision, passing cars like he had memorized every weakness before the race had even begun. His car didn't just look stable, it looked alive in the wet, responding to his every input with fluid obedience. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. The stopwatch began telling a different story than the standings. Every split, every sector, every crossing of the finish line showed a man moving faster than the storm itself. His pace didn't dip, it surged. He wasn't being cautious, he was composed. Rivals weren't just being caught, they were being hunted. And by the time the race entered its final stages, he was in 4th place, closing in on the podium like a predator. But it wasn't about the position. That number didn't do justice to what had been witnessed. What mattered wasn't where he finished, it was how he drove when everything around him fell apart. Leclerc, meanwhile, had boxed too late. The moment was gone. The opportunity had dissolved like the grip under his tires. He rejoined the track a shadow of himself, unable to recover, his race slipping further away with each passing lap. He had the same car, the same equipment, but not the same mindset. He looked to others when he should have looked within. He asked when he should have acted. And as the race raged on, his presence faded. Not because of lack of pace, but because of lack of conviction. That afternoon, Silverstone didn't just separate the brave from the cautious. It highlighted what can't be measured by simulators or split times. It exposed the thin line between instinct and instruction, between leaders and followers, between those who wait and those who own the moment. Two drivers, one team, one storm. One made the call and created his destiny. The other waited for certainty and watched the chance vanish in the spray. Hamilton didn't just deliver a great drive. He sent a message. That in the chaos, when plans crumble and the world blurs, those who trust their gut rise while others drown in doubt. He didn't just react to the storm. He thrived in it. He didn't need a perfect car. He needed a window, and when it opened, he exploded through it with the force of someone who's been forged by adversity. That race won't be remembered for the winner on the top step. It will be remembered for the driver who turned a downpour into a declaration of control. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. No celebration could outshine what happened behind the visor. No stat could quantify the feeling. And no trophy could capture what was written that day. Not on the podium, but on the wet asphalt, in the space where fear ends and instinct begins. What took place on that rain-drenched circuit wasn't just a display of speed. It was a revelation of instinct sharpened by years of pain, glory, and battle-hardened intuition. It wasn't about racing lines or tire compounds anymore. The race had transformed into something raw, something elemental. The moment called for more than talent. It demanded presence. And in the middle of that chaos, one figure emerged, not as a man reacting to conditions, but as a force that anticipated them. Lewis Hamilton didn't just return to the track on fresher rubber. He returned with an unshakable sense of rhythm, a calm fury burning beneath the surface, and a connection to the tarmac that was almost spiritual. Each corner wasn't approached, it was interpreted. Every throttle input felt like a sentence in a language only he could speak. While most were guessing at grip, Hamilton was feeling it, through his fingertips, through every nerve in his spine. The rain didn't rattle him. It revealed his clarity. The slick surface exposed hesitation in others, but for him, it was a platform, an opportunity to prove that mastery isn't about conditions, but about mindset. He wasn't at odds with the track. He was merged with it. When he emerged from the pits, it wasn't with aggression or panic. It was with deliberate intensity, calculated energy, controlled aggression. He knew exactly what had to be done and how to do it, not through radio commands, but through internal command. His moves were so clean they almost seemed rehearsed, yet every single one was spontaneous. Each maneuver told a story of precision under pressure. He wasn't defending. He wasn't reacting. He was writing a new narrative entirely, one overtaking at a time. Through every spray-covered straight and treacherous bend, he moved forward not with violence, but with inevitability. His trajectory wasn't wild or desperate. It was composed, exact, and brutally efficient. He read the race like a surgeon reads a heartbeat, finding rhythm in chaos, structure in the storm. While others saw uncertainty, he saw opportunity. While others fought the track, he let it guide him. His car didn't just obey, it surrendered to his intent. And what made it all the more staggering was that this wasn't a machine built around him. This wasn't his comfort zone. The SF-25 was sculpted for someone else's style, designed to suit another philosophy of control. But Hamilton didn't resist it. He hijacked it. He transformed something foreign into something obedient. He bent it to his will without breaking it. That's not adaptation, it's total domination in unfamiliar territory. Lap by lap, he dismantled the field. With each car he overtook, the tension rose, not just on the track, but in every garage, in every fan watching, in every rival who realized they weren't watching a comeback. They were witnessing a reminder. A reminder that when the rain falls and the strategy crumbles, there are very few who can see through the mist and own the moment. He wasn't chasing the race, he was shaping it. Meanwhile, further down the order, the contrast grew sharper, more painful. Charles Leclerc, in identical machinery, was nowhere near the battle. He had vanished, not physically, but psychologically. He wasn't fighting the conditions, he was trying to understand them. He wasn't pushing forward, He was stuck in limbo. Lapped. Drifting in P14. Not because of mechanical failure, but because of a lack of decisiveness when the storm demanded control. He asked for guidance, searched for clarity, waited for a cue that never came. While Hamilton owned the confusion, Leclerc drowned in it. The difference between the two wasn't just in execution, it was in mindset. One made the call. The other waited for it. And in that chasm of hesitation, the race was split. Not by seconds. By mental worlds. While one driver turned Silverstone into a canvas of control, the other became a spectator in his own cockpit. The same car. The same team. But two completely different energies. One pulling the storm inward, the other lost within it. Hamilton's performance wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of power that speaks in silence, the kind that fills every space without saying a word. He didn't ask for authority. He assumed it. He didn't beg for control. He embodied it. That kind of presence cannot be scripted or simulated. It comes from surviving every kind of storm imaginable and learning to smile in the eye of it. He didn't cross the line with fireworks. He didn't scream over the radio. But the impact of what he did was deafening. He reminded the sport, the fans, the critics, and the future that there are levels in Formula One that only a few can reach, and even fewer can own. He wasn't just fast. He was inevitable. And that's something no stopwatch can measure. When the rain fell, when the strategies collapsed, and when Ferrari hesitated, Hamilton didn't just drive. He defined what it means to rise when others shrink. And that, more than any result, was the real victory. The defining shift in the race didn't explode with sparks or screeching tires. It didn't arrive with a dive bomb overtake or a heart-stopping spin. It came in stillness. Quiet. On lap 13. Unannounced. Almost invisible. The kind of moment that slides beneath the radar yet flips the entire narrative on its head. The asphalt wasn't just wet, it was changing by the second, morphing beneath the cars like a living thing. Grip vanished not in a flash, but like breath fading on a mirror. The clouds hung low, heavy with threat. Forecasts lost coherence. Ferrari's high-frequency climate analysis, normally a fortress of precision, stuttered. The satellite feeds offered fragments, not conclusions. Data stalled. Certainty dissolved. The system couldn't keep up. But Lewis Hamilton could. He didn't require green lights from engineers or simulations to confirm what his senses already knew. While algorithms hesitated, Hamilton was already reading the track with a different language. Touch, rhythm, intuition. He didn't see water. He felt it. Not in the telemetry, but in how the car shifted beneath him. A twitch through turn 4. A strange delay in the throttle out of Abbey. A slight slide into Brooklands. These were not warnings. These were signals. He translated each of them in real time. Brake bias slightly forward. Throttle smoother. Balance recalibrated, not in response, but in anticipation. He wasn't reacting. He was absorbing the moment, molding it into something he could use. There was no panic. No shouting. No commotion. Just clarity. Just silence, and then action. While the race engineers on the pit wall struggled to decide if the time was right, Hamilton had already moved. Not with aggression, but with authority. He didn't ask. He didn't check. He informed. Box. That's all. A whisper delivered with thunderous certainty. The kind of radio call that doesn't need explanation because it carries weight. Real weight. And by the time the others understood what was happening, Hamilton was already pulling away. Seconds gained not through horsepower, but through sheer decisiveness. Charles Leclerc, immensely quick and surgically talented, was left behind not on pace but on belief. The rain hit him harder, not physically, but mentally. The spray wasn't just water, it was doubt. His messages over the radio weren't orders, they were appeals. Should I come in? Is now the time? His voice, so often sharp, was subdued. Uncertain. And that hesitation, it opened a gap no tire could close. He lingered one lap too long. Then another. The car beneath him stopped speaking clearly. He couldn't feel the track anymore, not because he lacked talent, but because he didn't trust the silence. Hamilton thrives in that silence. He's fluent in chaos. He doesn't wait for the perfect moment. He creates it. What Ferrari tried to model with algorithms, he found in the subtleties of motion. Where their strategy platform stalled in gray areas, Hamilton saw straight lines. His decision wasn't lucky. It was inevitable. The kind of choice born not from calculation, but from pure connection with the track, the weather, the atmosphere, the pulse of the race. Ferrari's tools are powerful. Their infrastructure, elite. But even the most complex machine fails when it waits too long to speak. Hamilton needed no input. He was the input. His racing brain outran every model, every forecast. He read the moisture before the rain fully arrived. He knew the crossover point before the screens blinked. His sense of timing, sharper than any algorithm, cut through the fog like a scalpel. Leclerc had the talent to challenge. But he lacked the timing. The presence. That fearless ownership of the unknown that only comes with a kind of experience you can't simulate. While he waited for permission, the opportunity disappeared into the distance. And when he finally switched tires, the gap was no longer seconds, it was the race itself. Hamilton's brilliance wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was precise, subtle, almost surgical. His mastery wasn't about bold moves, it was about invisible ones. Adjustments you don't notice until it's too late. A decision made before anyone else even realized a decision was needed. This wasn't strategy in the conventional sense. It was instinct refined by time, by pain, by history. The same instinct that had lit up the skies in Istanbul, turned treacherous corners into opportunities in Hockenheim, and made the impossible look routine in the fog of Fuji. He doesn't wait for control. He becomes it. He doesn't hope for order. He imposes it. And when the track turns wild, and the numbers go silent, and the world blinks, Lewis Hamilton sees everything. While Charles Leclerc operated with identical equipment, the same technical foundation, and equal engineering support, he failed to provide the clarity the team so desperately needed when the conditions grew murky and unpredictable. The tools were mirrored. The technology was balanced. The opportunities, perfectly aligned. But what played out on track was something far more revealing than a difference in lap time. It was a demonstration of control versus uncertainty, decisiveness versus hesitation, instinct versus analysis. In a sport where the margin between victory and obscurity is as thin as a tire's contact patch, what matters most is not the machine itself, but the individual commanding it. Leclerc, immensely talented and incredibly fast, found himself navigating not only the circuit but a storm within his own confidence. His radio messages were filled with fragmented concerns, moment-to-moment questions, and a tone of growing doubt. His language reflected a search for answers he hadn't yet found, uncertainty about grip, confusion over tire behavior, hesitation in strategy. His dialogue lacked sharpness. It was reactive, tentative, a stream of uncertainty that never quite crystallized into leadership. The rhythm of his race wasn't set by his own hands. It was dictated by fear of the unknown, by waiting for the right moment rather than making it. Hamilton, on the other hand, didn't ask for clarity. He brought it. His radio wasn't a line of communication. It was a declaration of confidence. Tell me when the window opens. I'll manage. No stutter. No second-guessing. Just a quiet, grounded statement that cut through the noise like a scalpel. In that one sentence, he delivered everything a top-tier racing operation wants from their driver. Confidence without ego, readiness without drama, understanding without over-explanation. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a message encoded with trust, experience, and full control over the moment. And that message changed everything. His tone shifted the atmosphere inside the Ferrari pit wall. His words didn't just land in the engineers' ears, they altered the tempo of decision-making. Because in Formula One, the most valuable resource is not energy recovery or wind tunnel hours, it's belief. The kind of belief that moves quicker than software updates. The kind that influences strategy calls before data confirms them. And Hamilton generated that belief, not by force, but by presence. Not by volume, but by precision. Leclerc wasn't outpaced. He was outpositioned, mentally, emotionally, competitively. His raw ability is unquestioned, but on that Sunday, what was required wasn't just speed. It was vision, leadership, command in the middle of crisis. And in those moments, Hamilton didn't flinch. He didn't adapt to the conditions. He absorbed them. He didn't ask the team what to do. He told them what he was about to do. He wasn't looking for guidance. He was providing it. That's the difference between potential and authority, between talent and legacy. The Ferrari SF25 did not evolve between drivers. There was no secret software tweak or hidden setup adjustment. The difference in outcome came entirely from what was inside the cockpit. Not in the hardware, but in the mindset. One man struggled to extract stability, wrestling the car in patches of doubt. The other molded the machine into a weapon with absolute conviction, using every fluctuation in weather and grip as an advantage rather than a threat. Leclerc felt like he was chasing control. Hamilton looked like he was control. Within the garage, the realization crept in quietly but undeniably. There were no speeches, no public confrontations. Just the weight of what had been seen, 2 drivers, 2 approaches, and one crystal-clear contrast in execution. While one driver fought against unpredictability, the other turned it into momentum. While one hesitated at every strategic fork in the road, the other charged forward with complete assurance. Hamilton didn't demand the spotlight. He made it impossible to look away. He didn't need team orders or number 1 status. He let the driving speak, louder, sharper, and more convincingly than anything else. His performance wasn't flashy. It was foundational. The kind of drive that doesn't just earn points, it earns direction. It defines how a team will think about its future, how it will distribute trust, how it will assign responsibility when the pressure peaks again. And it wasn't about being faster. It was about being clearer. In the fog of racing, literal and metaphorical, Hamilton was the signal, not the noise. Every sector, every line, every micro-decision was wrapped in intention. He didn't wait for the race to unfold. He bent it into shape. And while Leclerc remained locked in an internal debate, Hamilton delivered a performance that answered every question before it was even asked. That's what separates champions from challengers. That's what transforms a driver from participant to cornerstone. That's what makes one car look ordinary and the other unforgettable, even when they're identical. Trust in Formula One isn't given. It's earned, through composure, through presence, through execution under pressure. And Hamilton didn't just earn it that weekend. He owned it. Every maneuver Lewis Hamilton executed during the tension-filled laps at Silverstone was a testament to supreme clarity and foresight. Nothing he did behind the wheel was reactionary. Nothing was impulsive. He wasn't simply adapting to a difficult race. He was shaping it. It was as though he was 1 or 2 corners ahead of reality, visualizing the next moment before anyone else could catch up. While others were adjusting lap by lap, Lewis was composing an entire symphony at full speed, dictating rhythm, finding grip in impossible places, and slicing through the chaos like a man completely in control of his environment. In contrast, Charles Leclerc appeared locked in a struggle, not just with the ever-changing conditions, but with himself. As the race unfolded, Charles found himself trapped in skirmishes that should have been routine, losing time in battles he had no business being in. Midfield cars that Hamilton dispatched with quiet precision became obstacles for Leclerc. His lines grew erratic. His entries became late. His exits lacked momentum. Frustration was written across every sector time, visible in every correction of the steering wheel. He wasn't racing anymore. He was reacting, fighting to keep pace, searching for confidence that never quite arrived. The discomfort didn't stop when the cars rolled back into park firm. Leclerc's post-race body language told its own story. Shoulders tight. Voice low. Deflecting questions with mentions of instability, poor rear traction, and an unsettled setup window that never came together. But underneath those words was a deeper truth. Both drivers had the same machinery. And only one had transcended the car's limitations. The other had been consumed by them. Inside the Ferrari garage, no declarations were made. No public reassurances. But the energy had shifted. No need for blame. No need for confrontation. The people who matter most, those who build the car, analyze the data, shape the strategy, they already knew what they'd seen. They didn't need to hear it. They felt it. One driver had bent the race to his will. The other had waited for the race to come to him, and was left behind. Hamilton hadn't asked to lead. He didn't need to. His drive spoke in a language far louder than words. Ferrari has always been a team defined by emotion, by narrative, by myth. But in Formula One, myths collapse quickly when the stopwatch starts ticking. Silverstone didn't hand Ferrari a trophy, but it handed them clarity. Clearer than any wind tunnel readout. Sharper than any simulator run. They saw what happens when a driver doesn't just drive fast, but drives with command. Leclerc has been with the team for years. He's endured heartbreak, near misses, and relentless pressure. He's carried the hopes of a generation desperate for revival. But in one weekend, in a race that didn't need drama to be decisive, Hamilton began to eclipse all of that. What unfolded wasn't about the leaderboard. It wasn't about who finished fourth or fifth. It was about influence. Hamilton didn't just outpace Leclerc, he overpowered him psychologically. He captured the attention of everyone that matters. The engineers started looking at his feedback differently. The mechanics followed his rhythm. The strategists leaned into his tone on the radio. No orders changed hands. No memos were issued. But something within Ferrari started shifting its axis, and it started shifting toward Hamilton. This isn't the type of influence that can be printed on a performance sheet. It's deeper. It's subtle. It's the type of authority that builds in whispers and spreads like a current. Hamilton's weekend wasn't about scoring points. It was about claiming ground. Not with arrogance. Not with ego. But with execution so flawless it left no room for doubt. While Leclerc wrestled with the car, the conditions, and himself, Hamilton owned the situation. He didn't find confidence. He created it. And in a team searching for identity, for vision, for a path forward under the shadow of regulatory changes and new challenges, that kind of clarity is priceless. Ferrari knows that 2024 might not be their year. The championship may be drifting out of reach. But 2026? That's already being sculpted, moment by moment, in performances like this. In choices about who gets prioritized. Whose voice sets the tone. Whose instincts shape the machine. Hamilton isn't lobbying for leadership. He's pulling it toward himself like gravity. Leclerc may have the numbers. But Hamilton now has the momentum. And in Formula One, numbers can be erased in a weekend. But momentum? That changes destinies. That redefines careers. That reshapes teams. And right now, the very soul of Ferrari is leaning toward the man who's only just arrived, but who already looks like he's been in charge for years. He didn't do it with politics. He didn't need praise. He just let his driving speak louder than any press conference. He turned a fourth-place finish into a mission statement. He made everyone watching, from the garage to the boardroom, see the difference between potential and presence. And that difference, it wasn't measured in seconds. It was measured in certainty. Something is unraveling behind the walls of Maranello, something powerful, something undeniable, something no longer just speculation or fan chatter, but a transformation beginning to spread through every hallway, every workstation, every conversation held behind closed doors. It's not being shouted. It's not official. But it's real. The tone of engineering meetings has changed. The atmosphere in post-race briefings is different. The faces around the simulator have lost that familiar calm. Because the data doesn't whisper anymore, it screams. Over the final 30 laps at Silverstone, in the same car, on the same compound, facing the same changing sky and unpredictable grip, Lewis Hamilton didn't just outperform Charles Leclerc. He dismantled him. Nearly 18 seconds. On equal machinery. Equal strategy. Equal weather. Yet one driver soared while the other stalled. Those numbers are more than digits on a spreadsheet. They're the most uncomfortable truth Ferrari has had to face this season. They're the gap nobody wants to acknowledge out loud, but everyone has seen. In every corner entry, every lift through the wet patches, every call to box or stay out, Hamilton was in complete control. His lines were sharper. His feedback more actionable. His instinct more precise. While others were trying to survive the chaos, he was dictating the pace of it. He was calling the conditions before the sensors did. His race wasn't driven from the cockpit, it was led from it. Lap after lap, sector after sector, he took command of something far greater than a race. He seized the soul of the team. Inside Ferrari, everything is shifting. Strategy meetings now have a different undertone. The telemetry reviews aren't just about lap times anymore. They're about decision-making, adaptability, communication. In a team built on legacy, where every choice echoes through decades of triumph and heartbreak, there is now a burning question that can't be avoided much longer. Who is the right leader to carry the Scuderia into the next era? Leclerc has been the heart of Ferrari for years. The homegrown prodigy. The face of the future. The promise they believed in. His story is beautiful. His talent, breathtaking. But Formula One doesn't hand out championships for sentiment. It doesn't reward loyalty, it rewards results. And at Silverstone, in the most unstable high-pressure conditions of the season, when everything demanded clarity and aggression, Leclerc didn't impose his will. He faded. He waited. He reacted. While Hamilton, new to the team but old to pressure, didn't wait for Ferrari to guide him, he guided Ferrari. That difference isn't subtle. It's seismic. It's not just about who drives faster on a clean lap. It's about who leads in the fire, who doesn't flinch when the situation is out of control, who grabs a race by the throat and forces it into shape. Hamilton didn't ask what the strategy was. He told them. He didn't wonder if rain was coming. He knew. He didn't play safe. He risked, and those risks were measured, methodical, decisive. That's not driving. That's something far more dangerous. That's ownership. And now, within the Scuderia, that nearly 18-second difference has become radioactive. It's not being discussed in public, but behind every closed door, it's the only topic. Not because it was a gap. Because it was a message. A warning. A reshuffling of power. Hamilton didn't just beat Leclerc on track. He redefined Ferrari's internal balance. He became more than just a driver. He became the reference point. The pillar. The benchmark. The force that cannot be ignored anymore. Verstappen continues to dominate races with brutal efficiency. McLaren is ascending with scary momentum. But Ferrari's biggest test isn't external. It's internal. It's not Red Bull or Norris or weather or regulation changes. It's identity. It's vision. It's the question of what this team wants to become, and who has the presence, the focus, the resilience to shape that future. Because legacy only matters if it evolves. Ferrari can't cling to dreams of what Leclerc might become when they're already watching what Hamilton is. They can't ignore the reality playing out in real time. The team doesn't need hope, it needs leadership. It doesn't need potential, it needs certainty. And at Silverstone, in the storm, in the mess, in the madness, Hamilton was certainty. He didn't just outpace his teammate, he outclassed him, outthought him, outdrove him, outled him. Every lap widened the gap, but more importantly, it tightened Hamilton's grip on the team's future. People are starting to look at him differently. Not as the outsider. Not as the legend brought in for a final act. But as the foundation. As the center of gravity. As the voice that cuts through the fog. What was once a two-driver team is now orbiting around one figure. And that orbit is tightening. Ferrari is not a place for passengers. It's a place for alphas. For fire. For order in chaos. And right now, the man delivering that is not the one whose initials have been on the garage wall for years. It's the one who arrived, quiet, calm, unshaken, and took control without needing to raise his voice. This isn't about contracts. It isn't about marketing. It isn't about emotion. It's about clarity. And Hamilton, in one of the most unpredictable races of the year, brought more clarity to Ferrari than they've had in years. Not with slogans. Not with hope. With execution. With results. With presence. Silverstone wasn't a title decider. But it was a defining point in the battle for Ferrari's soul. And Hamilton didn't ask for that moment. He didn't wait for it. He created it. And now, everything is different. There comes a point in a driver's journey where machinery becomes irrelevant, where the limits of technology dissolve, and what remains is pure instinct, raw brilliance, and the unshakable command of someone who doesn't need the perfect setup to perform. They are the setup. Not every driver gets there. Most never will. But those who do leave a mark that can't be measured by statistics or trophies alone. Schumacher arrived at that place in the rain-soaked chaos of Barcelona '96. Senna carved his legacy through the waterlogged curves of Donington '93. And now, at Silverstone in 2025, Lewis Hamilton has added his name to that exclusive realm, not by dominating the leaderboard, but by showing something far more profound, what it means to completely own a moment when everything collapses. When the skies cracked open, when grip disappeared, when strategy turned to guesswork, and even the most advanced data feeds offered nothing but confusion, Hamilton didn't flinch. He didn't look for guidance. He became the guidance. The chaos that drowned others seemed to center him. While teams scrambled, hesitated, second-guessed, Hamilton executed. Not with noise, not with theatrics, but with an icy calm that radiated through every sector. His radio wasn't a stream of uncertainty. It was a series of sharp, precise, calculated updates. He wasn't asking questions. He was setting the tone. It wasn't about aggression. It was about authority. Not the kind that's given, but the kind that's earned, corner by corner, through decisions so perfect they seem inevitable only after they're made. No lockups. No desperate lunges. Just relentless control, the kind that makes you question whether he's responding to conditions or dictating them. Silverstone didn't become his because of where he stood on the podium. It became his because of what everyone around him felt. That unspoken shift in atmosphere. The collective realization that Ferrari had just witnessed something different, something beyond data or luck or timing. This wasn't a recovery drive. This was a redefinition of leadership under fire. And when the cars stopped, when the interviews faded, what remained was silence. Not the kind that signals confusion, but the kind that comes when everyone understands exactly what they just saw, even if they can't quite articulate it. In that silence, something fundamental changed. Ferrari, a team long haunted by hesitation, by strategic misfires, by inconsistencies disguised as potential, had finally seen a driver not just survive the storm, but bend it to his will. Not through optimism, through certainty. And when everything crumbled around him, he didn't react. He anticipated. He didn't wait. He moved. On the opposite side of the garage, the contrast couldn't have been sharper. Charles Leclerc, gifted and passionate as ever, once again fell victim to the same cycle that's plagued Ferrari for years. Hesitation in moments that demand instinct, communication lapses when clarity is essential. He wasn't lost. He was late. Late to read the conditions, late to find rhythm, late to rise when the tide turned. It wasn't failure. It was fragmentation, a disconnect between driver and machine, between instinct and action. And in Formula One, that gap is fatal. Ferrari doesn't function on popularity. It follows direction. And in Silverstone's storm, Hamilton didn't just lead, he became the compass. Without politics, without campaign, just results, just control, just excellence, delivered at a pace so unforgiving that it made every other movement look reactive. This wasn't a driver looking to prove himself. This was a force stepping into his element. Now, the culture is shifting. Not loudly, not overnight, but undeniably. Briefings are tighter. Voices are more focused. Doubt is quieter. There's a new tone in the garage, not from speeches or slogans, but from the weight of presence. That's what Hamilton brings. Not hype, not drama. Just this overwhelming sense that, no matter how bad it gets, he's already 2 steps ahead. He isn't adapting to Ferrari. Ferrari is realigning around him. The mechanics move quicker. The strategists speak with urgency. The pit wall watches with sharper eyes. Because when you share a garage with someone who operates at that level, you either rise or disappear. There's no middle ground anymore. He's not just setting the standard. He's raising it with every lap, every sector, every decision made at 300 kilometers per hour with the calm of someone ordering coffee. What happened at Silverstone wasn't spectacle. It was evolution. And everyone who was watching, closely, honestly, knew it. It wasn't about a podium. It was about who the team turned to when the pressure reached its boiling point. It wasn't the telemetry. It wasn't the strategy board. It was him. Not shouting. Not demanding. Just delivering. Flawlessly. No grand statements. No desperate moves. Just one driver doing what the greats do. Transforming confusion into clarity, fear into focus, and noise into a kind of silence that leaves everyone holding their breath. Because in this sport, not all legends roar. Some whisper their dominance into every corner. And when it's over, no one celebrates with fireworks. They just stand still, knowing they've seen something they might never see again. And they listen. Because in that moment, there's only one voice that matters.